Hello everyone, it's Dr. Stuart A. Swerdlow.
And Janet Diane Moria Swerdlow.
And this is the Expansions News Podcast for the first week of March 2019. And my first couple of stories this week involve that wonderful Congresswoman, Alexandria Acacio Cortez, henceforth referred to as AOC, who was also referred to by some news services as a smoking hot idiot. She claims, and I quote, "I'm the boss because no one else was trying to deal with climate change." AOC also says her new Green Deal is what's going to save the Earth, even though it comes straight out of the UN's Agenda 2030, which basically eliminates people from the Earth and redistributes the population. Her new Green Deal has 17 goals. For example, Goal 1 is to end poverty in all forms everywhere. And maybe Santa can come on Easter as well. Goal 2 is to end hunger, achieve food security, and improve nutrition and promote sustainable agriculture. But according to Ms. AOC, that involves everyone becoming a vegetarian or a vegan and eliminating meat from the diet completely. Goal 3 is to ensure healthy lives and promote well-being for all ages. Again, this is the Earth, this is not La La Land. And it goes on and on and on to build resilient infrastructure. She wants to rebuild every building in the United States. She also wants to promote peaceful and inclusive societies for sustainable development. Does she live on Earth with human beings? Because that's not going to happen here. And she goes on to say to strengthen the means of implementation and revitalize the global partnership for sustainable development. What is sustainable development? We've had sustainable development. It's been sustained and the Earth has been developing. So basically she wants to create a Shangri-La world of non-thinkers with no goals or individuality. And her wonderful Great New Deal will cost $93 trillion, or approximately $600,000 for every household in the United States. I just happen to have that laying around, so I'll just hand it over to her. And that number is from the Congressional Budget Office. Her universal health care would cost about $36 trillion, and Medicare would end up costing more than $30 trillion. She intends to pay for all of this by increasing taxes to unbelievable amounts, and even if that were to happen, it would only offset the expense of her wonderful plan by $2 trillion, so that means we would have to come up with the other $91 trillion. I think Miss AOC needs to rethink her thinking. But she also hints that people will need to be prevented through forced sterilization from having kids in order to stop climate change from spreading. So by not having babies, the climate will change. That makes a hell of a lot of sense to me. She says, and I quote, "Our planet is going to hit disaster if we don't turn this ship around." And so it's basically like there's a scientific consensus that the lives of children are going to be very difficult. Really, no scientist ever said this to me. And it does lead, I think, young people to have a legitimate question, is it okay to still have children? Well, Miss AOC, I certainly pray and hope to God that you never do, because I would not want to see you reproduce and create a little AOC. And I'm going to tell you something else. I did a lot of study on her, looked at her huge black, strange-looking eyes, and her very large, strange-looking teeth, and her strange demeanor and facial expressions, and I have come to the conclusion, and those of you who have been to my last few week-long classes, that she is a late-stage hybrid and very, very dangerous. On to another dangerous person in Congress. I mentioned it last week, Democratic Minnesota Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, who, interestingly enough, an evangelic leader has accused Omar of representing Hamas terrorist organization. This person says, and I quote, "Ilhan Omar covertly represents Hamas in the U.S. Congress. We need to act now before this blows up in our faces. And this is Lori Cardozo Moore, who's the head of the Franklin, Tennessee-based group Proclaiming Justice to the Nations. And it goes on to say that Omar says that fellow lawmakers have been bought off by pro-Israeli Jewish groups. Omar also said she compares Israel to the Iranian regime and suggests that Israel is not a democracy. Well, is Somalia a democracy? Is that why you left and came to the United States, Miss Omar? Maybe you need to go back to live in Somalia so you can appreciate the United States and its allies. Omar also drew criticism for endorsing the anti-Israel boycott, divestment, and sanctions known as BDS. Before she was elected, she came out against the BDS movement, and after she was elected, she changed her mind. Again, who voted for this person? But now there are thousands of signatures backing Omar's removal from Congress. And Omar is supported by the Council on American Islamic Relations, known as CAIR, and the group has been accused of ties with Hamas and the Muslim Brotherhood. According to the religious groups, the Christian religious groups, CAIR and Hamas are one and the same. Ilhan Omar openly fundraises for them, which means she's not only an anti-Semite, but a threat to national security. So, I know that Omar supports and is supported by terrorist organizations, Muslim organizations, and she needs not only to be expelled from Congress, but she needs to be deported from the United States. Now, Israeli intelligence along the same line says that ISIS is preparing to deploy in the Euphrates, that's in Iraq. Then its members will head to Germany, the US, France, and other European countries. And the Western politicians and I like this word, the media, wants to force people to welcome them with open arms. Well, anyone from Europe or North America who joined ISIS or killed people and helped terrorism should not be allowed to return. And there's been a big push on global media for these women who left the United States, Canada, Germany, Britain, and so on, who went to Syria and Iraq and married ISIS soldiers and had their children. Now they want to come back home because they said, oh, yes, we made a mistake. Well, what if they're plants? What if they were programmed in those countries to return and promote terrorism in their home countries? My opinion is, you left, you could stay there. And you can take Omar with you, by the way. Maybe AOC too. Now, just recently, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu was indicted on corruption charges by the country's Attorney General. And this is just weeks before the April 9th election in Israel. The charges are of 1 count of bribery, 2 counts of fraud and breach of trust, which relate to 3 different cases and have been investigated for the last 2 years. The indictments are subject to a hearing and marks the first time in Israeli history that a sitting prime minister has been charged with a crime. Now, former Prime Minister Ehud Olmert has been in prison for corruption, but he had resigned by the time he was charged. Netanyahu has denied any wrongdoing and calls the various allegations a media-orchestrated witch hunt aimed at removing him from office. He has vowed to carry on and is deadlocked in the polls ahead of national elections on April 9th. And this is the very same thing that they're doing to Trump here in the United States, wanting to remove him. Netanyahu vowed to fight the charges, which he called a lie. And I actually agree with him. The most serious allegations against Netanyahu involve his relationship with Shaul Elovitch, the controlling shareholder of Israel's telecom giant Bezek. Apparently, the accusations are that Netanyahu promoted regulatory changes worth hundreds of millions of dollars to Bezek, and in exchange, Netanyahu asked them to give him positive press coverage on Bezek's stations and news sites. I don't really think that's corruption. I think every politician in every country in the world has done that and worse. And it also accuses him of taking expensive gifts from people that he knew. And he doesn't deny taking those gifts, but he didn't do anything for them in exchange, according to him. Netanyahu, in my opinion, is the best prime minister Israel has ever had, and has created ties with former enemies, and that's why those in the deep state are against him, because he's ruining their plans for the world. Now, someone who should be removed from office is Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, who has dodged calls to resign over allegations that his administration pressured the former Attorney General not to pursue criminal investigations against a powerful engineering company accused of bribery. Ex-Attorney General Jody Wilson-Raybould testified to a House of Commons Justice Committee that senior officials had veiled threats against her in an attempt to convince her not to file criminal charges against SNC-Lavalin, headquartered in Montreal, Quebec. And they are accused of bribing officials in Libya with millions of dollars between 2001 and 2011 to secure government contracts in the African nation. Ms. Wilson-Raybould alleges that she experienced a consistent and sustained effort by people close to Trudeau to interfere with her pursuit of a criminal case against that company. And in fact, there were express statements made against her that there would be consequences should she continue to pursue that. Trudeau, as we know, is the illegitimate son of Fidel Castro, and he needs to be removed from office. He allowed Canada to be used to transfer uranium to Iran and committed other crimes against children in his own country, and that's been documented. Moving on to Asia, Pakistan and India, as you know, have shot down each other's warplanes over the disputed region of Kashmir. This is not new, it's been going on for 60 years. One pilot was shot down, and Pakistan released him, of course, after he was severely beaten by people on the ground. Pakistan closed its airspace to commercial flights, and so did India, especially north of New Delhi. And Indian warplanes are still attacking each other in Pakistan. And this came after India attacked a camp in the northeastern part of Pakistan that India said was a military training camp, and Pakistan said it was like a refugee camp. Pakistan has always been belligerent. It's interesting that the Saudi prince just recently went there last week, and then after all of that, this happened. So my opinion is that something is going on behind the scenes. Watch for a change in the regime in Pakistan, and that also would be very welcome by those who want truth. And final story, well, one of the final stories, that an ancient Japanese temple has spent about $1 million to deliver the teachings of Buddhism by a robot. The android is named Kanon, and he is based on the traditional Buddhist deity of mercy and is designed to attract young people. And is given his first sermon at Kyoto's Kodaji Temple. And according to these Buddhist priests, this android will help Buddhist teachings reach the hearts of people today. And the interesting last line is, we want many people to come and see the robot and to think about the essence of Buddhism. So does that mean the essence of Buddhism is AI, artificial intelligence? People bowing and praying to a robot? I don't think that's a very good thing. And one more thing behind the scenes about what's going on with what happened with Trump and Kim Jong-un in Vietnam. The outcome of this was known before he left. There was reasons why this happened. Watch for changes in the regime, both in North Korea and in Vietnam.
Okay. All right, so I have a couple of stories. This first one is a little older one, but I want to report on it because I've been seeing it going around the internet. All the things that are going on around the world with, here in the U.S. especially, about abortion. So there was something going around the internet which was talking about the sale of human fetal tissue that had been supposedly donated for research by women who get abortions through Planned Parenthood. So I was looking that up, and apparently this film that's now circulating was made back in 2015. What's interesting about this is I just want to give you some background information that apparently the film was made in 2015, and 2016 there was an investigation launched as a result of this, and the video purported to show a Planned Parenthood official discussing the illegal sale of fetal parts. And because of this, the House Republicans formed a selective investigative panel that spent 15 months examining fetal tissue sales. The panel produced a 471-page report, but there were no charges. So following on that, Planned Parenthood's vice president for government relations said the group had done nothing wrong, and she said that Planned Parenthood has never and would never profit from facilitating its patients' choice to donate fetal tissue for use in important medical research. The Judiciary Committee's report, which was called Human Fetal Tissue Research, Context and Controversy, said that the executive branch had failed to exercise oversight on the tissue transfer process and created a situation where costs and fees were not properly accounted for, and they recommended that the Justice Department fully investigate the fetal tissue practice of Planned Parenthood, its affiliates, and 3 companies involved in the sale of the tissue for potential crimes. This all happened under the Obama Justice Department and fell on deaf ears, and nothing was ever done about it. So I think that that's right there is very interesting as we move forward into what's happening here in the U.S. So with that said, I wanted to report on an editorial that was done by Dory Monson, who is actually from Washington State. And in her editorial, she remarks that the priority of the Democrats is to advocate for an abortion right up until the moment of birth. And in Virginia, the proposed abortion legislation applies to a mother who is actually in labor. Yes.
I have to say something. Mm-hmm. Why would you wait till you're so late in your pregnancy to decide you don't want the child? Wouldn't you decide the moment you found out you were pregnant?
Well, according to the law, the mother could say that it's anxiety or depression.
No, then she needs to go in mental care and not murder children.
And therefore, they could kill the baby while the mother is in labor.
They should kill the mother. Sorry, she should go.
It's terrible.
That is awful.
It's awful.
And I saw an article of parents that said, you know, we're not bad people because we want to do it. Yes, you are very bad people. You should be aborted.
You know, the thing is, I still don't understand. Why don't they just let the baby be born and give it to
somebody?
Give it away.
Let people dying to have children that can't have children. Give it to them.
This makes no sense.
Don't murder. And what doctor? I don't care if the law says he should or not. What doctor could do that? He also should be put in prison for life.
And that's the thing that interests me about this thing that happened under Obama, when that they were trying to say that Planned Parenthood was selling fetal tissue, and now this report says that it needs to be investigated, but nothing was ever done.
So does that mean if they take the baby out and it's alive, they kill it?
Yes.
That's murder.
Yes,
that is to kill a thing that is alive is a murder.
What they're saying, this is what they're saying. So they talked about this is the most radical legislation in Vermont, because then if the mother decides if she wants an abortion at any point, she doesn't even have to get a doctor to say it's necessary.
They should abort Hillary and Governor Cuomo. They should be both aborted instantly.
And it says that if a baby is born alive after a failed abortion minutes before birth, then the mother and the doctor can talk about letting it die. So they're calling, of course, you know, in the editorial, infanticide, right?
It's freaking murder.
Yes.
I don't know what they call the names of it. It's murder.
Infanticide.
You kill a living child, it's murder.
How do you say that?
Infanticide.
Oh, so I was correct. Okay.
So it's just murder.
Apparently, Nebraska Senator Ben Sasse introduced a bill that he thought everyone, regardless of political affiliation, would go for. It's called the Born Alive Abortion Survivors Protection Act. That says if the abortion doesn't work, which again, I'm with you, this is ridiculous that they should kill them while the mother's in labor.
How could they have a conscience? How can they even think of such a thing?
This act says if it doesn't work, then the baby is born alive. The doctors will do everything they can to take care of the baby and keep it alive. The senator wanted a unanimous consent decree, but this Washington Senator Patty Murray voted against it, saying that if there is a living baby after birth, they will just allow it to die.
They should allow her to die. They should put her out. She's from Arizona?
No, Washington State.
Washington State. They should put her on top of a mountain and tie her up and say, now you can die.
It says in New York State, the skies were lit up, which I reported on, after the legalization of abortions minutes before birth. Then, in that same state, legislators introduced a bill to ban raising geese for foie gras because of animal cruelty.
So the geese is more important than a living child.
Yeah, so we can kill a baby 2 minutes before birth, but we better protect the geese from being fattened.
Let me tell you something, people, and I have, it's nothing to do with religion, it has to do with spirituality and the laws of the universe. Those states and those people, especially the states that have approved this, horrible, disgusting, disastrous things will happen to those states. Yeah. You will see.
That's really terrible. And then, now this was also interesting. This is about Pope Francis. Because
Speaking of horrible and disgusting.
Because we talked about child sacrifice and all these things that are happening in the world, and this is part of it. So Pope Francis himself compared child sex abuse to human sacrifice at the end of the Roman Catholic Church recent summit on pedophilia. He said clergy guilty of abuse were tools of Satan, and he said, quote, "I am reminded of the cruel religious practice once widespread in certain cultures of sacrificing human beings, frequently children, in pagan rites." This is the same thing, in my opinion.
Yeah, he wears the hat that represents the people that did that.
Yes. Now, this to me is kind of in line with what I'm talking about, and this I reported on when it was first happening, I think about July of last year, this Momo character that comes up.
That's awful.
And
I can't even look at those images.
Tells children basically to kill themselves or hurt themselves with eventually killing themselves. And the Momo challenge has been linked to more than 100 deaths of teens and children around the world.
But that's allowed on the internet, but videos that tell the truth are blocked.
Well, this, supposedly somebody's hacked it in. And this Momo, this
They call the government.
Momo, this was interesting to me because this came through my Facebook feed, that apparently there was this, well, it's a combination. There was an article, and I have the source listed, on a YouTube kid channel, and the video is called Peppa Pig. And now this woman who was writing about it on Facebook said that Peppa Pig's looks like a penis. We kind of looked at that, picture. And yeah, I could say maybe. Now, what was interesting, this particular article that came through said that Peppa is actually APEC backwards. And APEC, or APEP, is an ancient Egyptian deity who embodied chaos, was thus the opponent of light and order and truth, and appears in art as a giant serpent. So I thought that was especially interesting. And I don't know what Momo could possibly stand for, but obviously Britain has been issuing warnings about this. It's showing up on this Peppa Pig videos in a game called Fortnite. I want to know
why that can't be removed, but the truth videos are removed. Yeah. That's what I want to know why.
Very interesting. And the thing is, and now I did notice here in Southwest Michigan, also through the Berrien County Sheriff, they also were issuing warnings to parents. So it's out there, and you got to be careful what your kids are doing. It's just terrible. Anyway, this is YouTube Kids. And in fact, I saw something saying go to YouTube, Google, well, for kids, I guess. But, you know, here we are, YouTube Kids, so what's the difference? And speaking of more insanity, in Sweden, there's a youth branch of Swedish Liberal People's Party who is saying that incest and necrophilia should be legal. Huh. They said that incest can be considered unusual and disgusting, but the law cannot stem from it being disgusting. And they think that children, brothers and sisters, age 15 and over, which to me is still very young, they should be able to have consensual sex between each other.
Isn't that like France saying that girls 13 can decide if they want to have a sex partner?
Yeah. And then
this is why Europe will be destroyed.
Then they also say that people could bequeath their bodies for intercourse after death without fearing the perpetrator would be prosecuted. And the person in charge of all this says you could decide what happens to your body after you die, if you want it buried or cremated or given to a museum or for research, so why can't you bequeath it to someone for sex? And that's okay.
Because that's mentally ill.
I agree with you, my dear. It's just terrible. And then it said in 2014, the German Ethics Council called for an end to the criminalization of incest between siblings. So, you know, we've talked about this for many years.
You know what? I think the people that voted for that is because they've done it.
Most likely. I mean, who else would? Read our book, The True Reality of Sexuality, because that was written about 20 years ago. I don't know if I have it up here. I don't. But anyway, we wrote about 20 years ago, and we somebody wrote on one of their comments, how could we have predicted all stuff? Because we watch the trends, and this is what we tell you to do.
Because humans are sick. Human beings are sick,
So
mentally ill people.
We tell you to watch these trends, be aware of it, so you control your own mind so nobody else controls it for you. And then on to Meghan Markle.
Ugh.
Now, this is just
you know what?
a rumor that she wants to take a fluid approach to gender when raising her child. And supposedly she told her friends this when she came to New York to have this baby shower. Which
Was she drinking?
To me, this is some kind of a cover because a woman in her 7th month is not going to be flying
Right.
all across,
Exactly.
especially if she's
and
carrying
then she went
royals.
to Morocco where they were killing people.
All kinds of things. So there's all weird stuff. Remember what I tell you, she's the Duchess of Sussex, S-E-X there.
One of the royal staff called her she's very mean.
No, they've said that a long time.
Yeah, people are leaving their positions to get away from her.
Yeah, they've said that a long time. So anyway, weird stuff going on. And then speaking of weird stuff, in the Amazon jungle, well, this was interesting. There was a 36-foot-long humpback whale found dead.
Yes.
Weighed 10 ton and about 15 meters or 50 feet away from the ocean. And it took the research team 2 attempts to even get to it. It was buried in woodland.
So then, how did it get there?
Yeah, that's the mystery. Now,
Does anyone remember Close Encounters of the Third Kind? Where all of a sudden they'd find things in the desert? How did it get there? Like a ship dropped in the middle of the desert?
that's
came
what
from
this
up
reminds
there,
me.
from the sky.
Reminds me of, because it said that a team of 10 biologists couldn't reach it after the first attempt. And on the second attempt, they got to it.
No, the cover story is like there was a big flood, and then the body floated up over the ground, and then it dropped it into the jungle, and then the water receded, and they found it.
Yeah.
Right, just like that's how they moved the Stonehenge stones from Wales.
Yeah.
They just dragged them across hundreds of miles.
It doesn't make sense. And it says that apparently humpback whales are normally seen in Bahia on the north coast between August to November. This is February. It's a well-known breeding and delivery area. Then the whales migrate to Antarctica. So they don't usually travel to the north.
And that's because it didn't. It was dropped from a spaceship.
Yeah. And then, speaking of more astral, in my opinion, entities and things that are being set up for you, Lake Erie just won the same legal rights as people.
So Lake Erie is a person now?
Yeah. Ohio voters passed, they're calling it groundbreaking legislation that allows citizens to sue on behalf of the lake when it's polluted. So in their voting form, they were asked, this was the question, quote, should Lake Erie be granted the legal rights normally reserved for a person, unquote. Now we can't do this for a baby who's about ready to be born.
Right, you can kill a live full-term baby,
Right.
but the lake needs to have its rights protected.
As a person. That can be a person, but not a baby,
is this a
okay?
sick country or what?
Well, it's not just our country, because, and I reported on this before, it says it's they're calling this a nation rights of nature movement. And I have reported on this.
Oh yeah, like where natural objects have rights.
Now, in 2014, New Zealand recognized the legal rights of the Te Uriwera forest. In 2017, Colombia granted rights to the Rio Atrato River. India recognized the Ganges and Yamuna rivers as legal persons. And in 2018, the Amazon rainforest got its own rights, and so did a specific plant species.
Which one was that?
It's a wild rice known as manumin, one of the Anishinabe's people's staple crops. So what's interesting to me, one more thing before I go on. It says they're comparing this like a corporation has a legal right, but they don't call a corporation a person. Okay, they do not call a corporation
It's an entity.
a person. It's an entity. Now this they're calling a person. So what I'm telling you is back when paganism was big, everything had a name, and they invoked astral gods, and
Spirits, right.
Yes, and to speak through things. And I told you about the that new show, I can't think of the name of it, but they're dressed like, in my opinion, astral entities, and the singers sing, and then they have to guess who it is.
Is that show still on?
I would imagine it's new, and they're trying to imprint people. So this is the same thing as why they're naming storms right now.
You know,
They're
I
naming
wish
this
I could
storm
get
and that
off this
storm.
planet.
And all kinds of storms. And pretty soon they go, oh, well, why don't we just have this god for the wind, and we'll have this god for the lakes. You'll watch. It will keep coming. Now, I'm going to skip to the next story because it goes right along with this one. And this is about the Denver International Airport.
Oh yeah.
that there was a talking gargoyle. And the talking gargoyle said, "Welcome to Illuminati headquarters."
And that's the truth.
Oh, I mean Denver International Airport, ha ha ha.
Yeah,
So,
because, right.
the gargoyle is like a representative of an astral entity there. And it's talking to people. So now people are thinking it's funny, haha, but this is how they're imprinting you.
But it also makes the story, the so-called conspiracy stories about Denver Airport, makes fun of them, and
Yes.
people like, oh, how silly, see how
Right.
stupid it is.
Right, yeah. So I just wanted to put that out there too, because you have to watch these trends. That's what we tell you is the trends. So you don't participate, you don't get involved, you know what's happening. It's not cool, and you're not like, right in with everybody else. You need to stand back and stop and ignore the nonsense and not participate. This will be my last story. The last one, which I found relatively interesting, because we talk a lot about earthquakes and all the things that are happening in the environment. Well, guess what? A recent government report found that the mega storm in California could do more damage than any earthquake that would ever strike. A mega storm. It could breach the Whittier Narrows Dam in Los Angeles County and would do double the damage of a big earthquake. They said that it could inundate cities and cause up to $725 billion in damage. And apparently they started this storm, deciding about it, I guess, in 2011. Now here we are. It was a team of scientists and the United States Geological Survey, the USGS. They compared this possible storm, they call it a mega storm, to the California winter storms of 1861 and 1862, which killed thousands and left a 300-mile-long lake in the center of the state.
And did they call it an 1861 global warming?
What's more interesting is they named it. Listen to this. They named it the Atmospheric River 1000, the future.
Yeah.
Okay, now the abbreviation is, guess what? ARC, A-R-K, ARC storm, like Noah's Ark. And they say that every 500 to 1,000 years that these levels of precipitation are only seen at every 500 to 1,000 years. And then if it does hit, first of all, they say if it does hit. But then later on in the article, they say it's inevitable, as is the earthquake. So, I mean, I certainly would not want to be living in California.
I'd leave, and in fact, I just saw an article that said that there will be a mega volcanic eruption in California imminently.
So we have an earthquake, a volcanic eruption, and now we have
Yeah,
arc
actually,
storm.
someplace I'd want to live.
It said that apparently in 2017, the near failure of the Oroville Dam outside of Sacramento prompted the evacuation of more than 180,000 people. And now they're saying if the Whittier Narrows Dam should fail, there would be about 1.5 million people to evacuate. And what would be left with the flood levels would be up to 20 feet. And it could be worse.
You don't have to build a wall in California because there ain't going to be no California.
So that's why I said, lots of things are going on out there. And, fix your mind pattern. That's what we talk about. Got 1 billion books you can read. You can join our website. We have our Facebook pages. There's lots of information out there. So, for example, our webinars, the March ones, to start this week. So we have a couple spaces if you want to sign up. That one is based on my affirmations book. Affirmations for Self-Change is called Affirming You. People doing that are doing great work. Then you are on to Quito.
I'm leaving this week.
Yes.
First to New York, then through Mexico City, and then to Quito.
And a lot of people are asking for things in Spanish. So, and I realize Quito's maybe a ways away for some of you, but the person that we have down there, our sponsor, is doing fabulous
He's excellent.
work.
Dr. Carlos Jaramillo.
Yeah, he's doing a lot
excellent
of translating work.
Bionutrition Center in Quito.
Yeah.
Member of SMOC. Excellent person.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's your second time there. And
Yes.
then you go on to...
second time doing seminar, but we've
in
been
Quito,
before. And then the end of the month, March 31st, I'm on my way to the Bahamas to do a live radio show with the next Prime Minister of Bahamas. And then I was invited end of May to do a conference in Medellin, Colombia. And when some other people found out about it, they said, well, can't you also come to Curacao? So I'm just going to be...
bopping all over.
I'll send you postcards.
Yeah, so lots of things going on.
And then, of course, a big event in October, end of October, in St. Kitts Nevis. We will be having the conference and congress there with our special guest, Steven Seagal.
And
from
which
the Russian
event did
Foreign
you
Ministry.
forget?
September class.
Before that?
Italy.
Yes.
Well,
So Italy, it happens, Clear Health and Healing Summer Tour. We have been doing this once a year. Doesn't mean we're going to continue it forever. So if you want to go, like, don't think maybe next year I'll go, because next year we might not do it. And we've changed a lot of things, and we are changing a lot of things.
And I think I may or may not do September class this year.
Yeah, well, we're not sure about January either.
Because if things happen the way they're going to happen very soon, I just may not do any of this anymore and deal with these insane human beings who send nasty comments in for no reason.
So there you have it. So like I said, Italy, if you want to go and you've been thinking about it, then think, oh, well, I'll go next year, 2020, because it may not happen. So
yeah, you never know, people.
So like, comment, kindly please, share, and please like our Yakushan Leica page. And join our website, get our membership, less than $1 a day to support us, and that's where we're going to focus, most likely in 2020
and beyond.
Beyond.
So that's all for now. I'll see you when I get back.
Bye.
Bye.